From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Candlegate.
If you've got a tip for Melissa, a dark change in the tone in that conversation with the church handyman, the sudden silence when you bring up the old cafetorium at your high school reunion, what Bert Convy was really like. Anything, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host, keeping her head down, her powder dry, and her stash of Count Chocula in an undisclosed pantry, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. Your intros get more bizarre as the time goes on. What's a cafetorium?
Oh, you didn't have a cafetorium like when you were in elementary school or like junior high?
We had a cafeteria.
Well, what we had...
A cafetorium is where they set you on fire after you're dead, right?
No, it does
and then
sound
people drink coffee after that?
Yeah, it does sound like that, doesn't
it does.
No, I grew up with cafetoriums.
Well, that's a weird thing.
What
it's
it's a
combination.
It's a combination of the cafeteria and... In off hours, it's the auditorium.
Oh, I see. Because you must have been poor.
It was a multi-use.
Because we had an actual auditorium and a cafeteria.
Yes, my high school.
So you were poor.
The high school that I graduated from.
Were you a coal miner's daughter?
The high school that I graduated from.
I know, it was fancy pants.
Was nice. It had an auditorium, and all that stuff. But
I know.
Junior high or my first high school that I went to, there was a cafetorium.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you have long conversations with the handyman that turned dark?
I didn't, but I heard about
worried.
him.
And I think Bert Convy was a swell dude with great curly hair.
He was, and I just found out about his life and death after I remembered his name. I looked it up to make sure he was indeed what he was really like or what he is really like. And
I think he was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
He was married to what was her name? Elaine?
Oh, I don't know. I missed that part.
I made that up then. No, I can see her short blonde hair and her name is Elaine. Anyway, Bert Convy Children was a game show host. He was handsome guy from like Jesus Christ. So it was like the 70s?
Yeah, he was an actor and a singer. He was in a lot of TV. He did a lot of acting.
Oh.
But he toward the end of his career, did a lot of game shows.
I don't even remember the acting. I remember the game shows.
Oh,
Because I remember thinking, what a handsome fellow. I have stick straight hair, and I was jealous of those he had gorgeous curls.
Yes, he did.
Beautiful curl, which, by the way, I know this is an odd segue, but when you're an old lady like me and a young spry girl acts like she envies anything you have, it kind of makes you happy. So I'm in line at Target, and the girl running the register is adorable, and she had cool ass colored hair and some really great nails, and we were just talking. I potentially may have been buying a few things from the beauty supply area. Mm-hmm. Anyway, she goes, how do you curl your hair? I just can't get it to curl. And I'm like, girl, my hair sticks straight. I said just like that. Girl.
Really?
No. My hair sticks straight. And I got this thing from Conair called Unbound. And it is cordless, which is the whole reason I got it, because who needs to fuck around with more cords? And it's kind of pricey. I think it's like $60, and I think I got it on sale for $40. And I got it on sale, and it was the purple one. It comes in different colors, like rose gold or whatever. But it looks like an odd lighter, like you would use to light like a bonfire or something. It's I know it's kind of oval shaped. It's kind of odd. It's probably 8 inches tall, and it has a curling iron in the middle, and you charge it, like I said, it's cordless, and then it's so you can walk around and curl your hair, and you put your hair in it, and it sucks your hair up. It goes like, brrr, it like sucks your hair around this heated rod. It
sounds like an implement of torture.
It is actually a little bit. I've only got my hair caught once or twice, but you can always get your hair out. It's not a big deal.
That's good to know.
Fuck off. So anyway, you push R for right and L for left. You can go from like 360 to 400 degrees. And I don't know if it's the size of the barrel inside the torture implement or what, but
Yeah.
I know you're in your headquarters, but you should see my hair. It looks great today.
I saw your hair before I came in here.
And the
It's
curls,
it's beautiful.
Yeah, the curls are holding. So the lovely young lady at Target, we had a nice discussion about that. So I wanted to say thank you to Irene for subscribing to the YouTube channel. And if you are listening to this podcast, and if you would be so kind to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening, we would be very grateful if you could take a moment to either rate or even a few more moments to review this podcast. We would really be happy about that. And we're very grateful for the tipsters that have done so already. It's means so much to us. If you have a case idea you want to see us cover, please email us at jttipsters@gmail.com. You can call us on the Tipster hotline at 832-847-7837. That's 832-TIPSTER. And we are getting a lot of messages, a lot of comments on social media about the Randy Sellers case, which we're going to talk about that in just a second. That's last week's episode. But before that, I need to explain Candlegate. Tipster Charlotte, I know you shamed me last week about my 20 or so candles in the candle cabinet.
Candlegate? I can't wait for this.
Candlegate 2021.
Oh my God.
It's Candlegate.
Okay.
You shamed me for my large collection of candles.
I did no such thing.
At the time we were getting ready to record, Tipster Deneen messaged me and said, if you like, Paris Cafe, you're going to like whipped coffee. And I'm like, oh no, my darling, we don't like whipped coffee. And then Tipster Charlotte, after she hears last week's episode, says, I said that she was not a hoarder like me, and it's her fault that I have a candle cabinet. She let me know that she has 14 candles and 16 hand soaps from Bath & Body Works in her candle cabinet. So hers is a candle/soap cabinet.
Okay. There is a sickness going among us.
Okay,
here.
thank you.
It's traveling among all of us here. It's avoiding the men for the moment.
Okay.
But I see a real problem
now
happening
this is going to drag you in it, okay? Tipster Susan messaged me just to say Paris Cafe sucks. So she is now on double secret probation.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I just assumed you'd want to block her.
You're out of our lives forever. You're gone.
Yeah, sorry. Be gone. I beseech you, spawn of the devil. You get behind me, Satan.
I cast you into the wilderness of
the Bath and Body Works.
You're right.
How can someone not like Paris Cafe?
Paris Cafe,
it's really delicious.
It smells like
coffee,
like a coffee house.
Yep.
You know what it really smells like? It smells like a coffee house in a really the coffee part of a really good independent bookstore where they sell coffee.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it's not like the crap coffee.
And you can smell like the books. And it's so good.
Yeah, it's incredibly. Yeah, it's yummy. I'm sorry, Tipster Susan, that you obviously have anosmia or something, like you were hit in the head.
What's anosmia?
Oh, it's where your olfactory nerve doesn't work. Oh. Which, by the way, it's the only nerve that can actually regenerate in your entire body. A lot of people get anosmia if they get hit in the head, like, a concussion, but it comes back. So.
How do you know these things? How do you know these things?
I'm a weirdo.
I'm going to use anosmia now. I'm going to find a way to use it.
anosmia.
Yeah.
Anosmia. It's you're honestly, a lot of people who have head injuries, it affects their olfactory nerve, which honestly it's the only nerve that can grow back. That's crazy.
Amazing.
It's like a lizard tail. But some people get hit in the head and have, anosmia for the rest of their life. But
wow.
Yeah. So obviously Tipster Susan has some sort of damage.
I'm going to wow somebody the next time I'm in a car with a friend and we're driving by like a cow pasture, and I'd say, wow, this would be a good time to have anosmia. Wouldn't it, Sam?
Wouldn't it, brother?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Wouldn't it, pal?
And then you know what they do? They open the door and get out and roll just to get away from you.
No, they wouldn't, because
they would.
They'd be right next to the cow pasture.
They'd be fine. They'd like, put my face in a cow patty so I don't have to hear Mark Humphreys talk about anosmia anymore.
All right, I'm shutting up.
Okay,
now.
good. So about the Randy Sellers case, we've been overwhelmed with the amount of people that are sharing the episode, which is a blessing. It apparently has struck some nerves in Northern Kentucky. I've gotten emails from family members of some of the officers, alternate theories. It's been a little, I haven't even told producer Mark all of it, but we were going to pick up my car today, which was in the shop. And he's like, who are you talking to? I'm like, I'm just trying to answer all the people that...
They were coming in like, ding, bing, 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 bing. And she's like frantically responding to every one of them.
I'm trying, and that's me. I'm a weirdo. A lot of people don't even care, but I am grateful to all of you who have messaged us on either social media or sent us emails. We've gotten quite a few, and we're grateful. And what we had hoped this episode would be part 2 of Randy's case, where we spoke with retired Kentucky State Police Detective Fred Scroggins about his years covering Randy's case and some of his theories, because boy, are there some good ones, and it just kills me that we can't, but he is still recovering. He had a 6-hour surgery on his spine, and we spoke a couple times this week, and he said, I'm doing a lot of sleeping. And I was like, that's good, because that's when your body heals itself. So, and another alternate conversation, the body is an amazing thing. Something as falling 20 feet and, cracking your vertebra and breaking 3 ribs. And he probably had other things, because he's such a, badass. He doesn't, he probably like punctured a lung or so. He doesn't even talk about it. He's just like, yeah, I'm just sleeping a lot. So, the body is an amazing thing, and we just want to wish retired Detective Scroggins a speedy recovery, and hopefully we'll get to talk to him, sometime soon in the future about, we're going to call it part 2 of Randy's case, and we'd really hoped to bring it to you this week as part 2, but, things happen, like, a 20-foot fall. So, yeah, we're really happy for those of you that have given us your opinions, your theories, what you're thinking, how you're feeling about Randy's case, because it seems to have touched a nerve. I think maybe I opened up, a can of worms by naming names, and that's sort of what happened, even though I've named them in the past.
And they're all names that are out in the public.
They are. It's not
domain.
like I'm saying anything new. That's just right. These are all things that are out there that I have said in the 3 or 4 previous episodes we've done about Randy. So,
absolutely,
it's not like it's new. So we do have some interesting episodes that are going to be coming up, a couple of cold cases. I think I've mentioned them before, one from Minnesota, one from upstate New York. And I'm really excited about an episode that will be coming up, an author who wrote a really terrific book. I'm going to say terrific so far because I just got it today and I'm loving it, and I'm running out of highlighter. I love it so much. But she wrote this book about a family member of hers who testified against some San Diego sheriff's deputies and then was found murdered. And her case is still unsolved. And it was like 1985. And Anita DeFrancisco is the author, and she is a really spectacular human. And I can't wait to talk to her in person about this book, and about, she's actually a very fascinating person. Her life is fascinating. She's written other books, and she's a teacher, and she's kind of an amazing Renaissance woman. But what she's asking for is very simple. She just wants her cousin's case file to be made available to the public, but one piece in particular, and that's the autopsy, which to this day in 2021, and her book just came out at the end of 2020, her cousin's murder and autopsy are the only sealed file in the San Diego County, files.
Ever?
Yep. The only autopsy that is sealed. Autopsies are, public record.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm interested.
There you go. And we have a giveaway coming up. I just have to figure out what I need you guys to do. I never ask you to do anything because I'm really bad at marketing, but this amazing artist made these beautiful, artistic, handmade, specially curated items for me to use for a giveaway. And, I may ask you to tell a friend about the podcast and tag us on social media, something like that. It's not going to be like, you have to go on stage with a hypnotist and cluck like a chicken. It's just going to be...
Wait a minute. I thought that was coming with this. That was part of the deal.
No, I think I need a street team. I need the street team out there.
We were going to call it Tip-Sters the Cluckin'.
No, we were not.
Yes, we were.
No, that was never happening, and that's never been talked about.
All right.
So I need a street team to help, build more Tip-Sters. So it's really these things that were made for us to give to you are spectacular, and we'll be showcasing them soon. You get 2. So my theory is like you keep one for you, you give one to your friend or your girlfriend or your mom or a coworker, or keep them both if you're like a selfish cunt. That's totally fine because they're incredibly beautiful and I think you're going to love them. And we're just really blessed that some of our tipsters are the most creative, talented artists in the world. So this episode is one I would never have done. And I don't even want to talk about some of the outlying things that may be, I'm going to call them murder adjacent. And it's difficult to talk about this case without talking about the other cases that could impact it. And I'm just going to hope that they don't. But there may be one that's related, but I think the others are not. It just happens to be something that happened in a small, beautiful, well thought of town. It was actually voted America's most beautiful small town, and that's Bardstown, Kentucky. And I would never have talked about this case if it were not for our beloved Sheila Gray from WKRC Local 12. She messaged me a few weeks ago and said, "Have you ever covered the Jason Ellis case?" And I'm like, no, and I don't want to. But, she is such a magnificent supporter of the podcast. She has family members who have been and probably are still in law enforcement. And I think a case where someone in law enforcement is, and there's just no other word, assassinated, and we don't know who or why, I wanted to do this case for her. And I literally just would not have ever touched this with a 10-foot pole. All of the shit that's gone on in Bardstown in the last 7 or 8 years has been covered extensively and done in a much better way than I ever could, probably. There have been TV shows. There have been numerous podcasts. There's a podcast specifically named Bardstown. And, a wonderful journalist sort of hosts it, writes it. There have been the Oxygen Network has covered the Crystal Rogers case. So there are, multiple TV shows, multiple podcasts that cover this. And I'm thinking, why on earth would I throw my hat in the ring? I don't even want to talk about this. And yet I do feel if I'm asked by someone that I respect as much as Sheila, I'm going to cover this case. And then the more I dug into it, the more I was like, oh my, this is it. I can't not talk about the other cases, but you're going to understand why. And I'm going to hopefully keep them on the periphery, even though they are also interesting cases. And there are 5 unsolved murders in Bardstown. It was a city without a lot of murders ever. And these 5 happened in a pretty short period of time. A lot of people think all of them are related. I really do not. I'm going to try to make a case for why and why not the cases could be related. But the one I want to focus on is the murder of Jason Ellis, Bardstown Patrol Officer Jason Ellis, because I have a hole in my heart for this man. And it isn't just because he was in law enforcement. He was great at what he did, but he was a stellar human. So this is the case of the unsolved homicide of Jason Ellis. It was Memorial Day weekend, Saturday night, Sunday morning of May 25th of 2013. And Jason Ellis had been interrupted from his son's baseball game to go out on a call. So this is just one of those details that gets you. He did not have time to say goodbye to his wife and his kids. They had 2 sons, and he and his wife Amy were kind of a spectacular couple, just your average Americans, but also doing, some amazing work. So he had been interrupted in the middle of his son's baseball game, and he made 3 arrests that evening. And he had gone back to the station, the Bardstown PD station, to fill out paperwork. Saw a couple of his fellow officers, and then he was on his way home at about 2 a.m. Now, he took exit 34 off of the Bluegrass Parkway. And it was a little bit different night than normal because he's kind of specialized in being a K-9 officer. He really had made, according to the chief at the time, Rick McCubbin, he had made a dent in the drug world in Bardstown. And there's a whole lot of weird theories about who could have done this and why. None of them are quite gelling. I've read a couple things that are, kind of goofy, like the Cornbread Mafia and, the word omerta, which means, code of silence. I'm like, you can't use a Sicilian mafia term when you call yourself the Cornbread Mafia. But anyway, he, had made a real dent in some drug cases, and he had arrested these 3 individuals and booked them in that evening. And he's on his way home, but it's different. He's not driving his regular K-9 vehicle. His K-9 partner is Figo, F-I-G-O, who was a beautiful German Shepard, a beautiful drug detecting German Shepard. And Jason was great at training and handling Figo, and Figo was, in every way and every definition, his partner. And there's an event that happens at Jason's funeral that is, it's breathtaking, and it made everyone just stop. It's gasp worthy, if you want to know the truth. And if, those of you who don't think dogs know, dogs know. So he's driving what's called a pool car, one from the carpool lot of cars for officers. It does not have dash cam. At the time, in 2013, Bardstown PD did not have body cam. But he had on, and this is just, he had on his Kevlar vest. He's driving home. He pulls off onto exit 34, and there is a large tree branch blocking the lane. Now, I looked up how large are lanes, and the U.S. interstate highway system is 12-foot lanes, and that even goes for exit ramps. Now, if you see footage of where Officer Ellis was assassinated, it's not like a ramp in that it goes up or it goes down. It's a very flat kind of ramp, but it is surrounded by the incredible bluegrass of Kentucky and, large ditches and trees and a lot of, there's a lot of places to hide. He gets out of his car sometime close to 2:30 to move the large branch that is blocking the exit ramp. And I don't know if people called in and said, I drove around it or how they know this, but others had driven around it. So Officer Ellis gets out to move it because he's a sworn officer and doesn't want anyone to have an accident or get injured. And as he literally steps out of his car, it is theorized that he is shot by 2 different snipers. And he is shot in the arm, the side, the neck, and the head. Everywhere where he's not protected.
Oh.
They really feel like he was ambushed by 2 different assassins. And that's what I'm just going to have to call them, as assassins.
Yeah, they knew that he would be there to move the object. They knew what he was wearing. They had to.
Well, that's one theory, producer Mark.
Jumping to conclusions.
Yes, but I feel like they're probably all the right ones. There are theories that this could have been a person who just wanted to kill someone, or 2 people, which I find even more bizarre. I know there are teams who kill, but it's typically much more up close and personal. This was an assassination. It was snipers. It was just snipers who assassinated an officer. The tree branch that was on the exit ramp is not indigenous to the area. It had to be brought in. Someone brought in at least a 10-foot tree branch to leave blocking the exit ramp and just immediately shoot the officer as he exits his car.
Right.
Talk about a planned execution. There are those who think it was just someone who likes to kill people. I'm just not sure I'm buying that.
Well, the thing that interests me about this is that the object, the tree branch, yeah, you could say that they were just going to wait and shoot anybody who got out to move it, but the fact that they shot him in all the places where he was not wearing the vest.
I'm going to say this, and this is just conjecture, because those in the know say they more than likely feel it's someone who was military trained or a trained hunter. No one's coming right out and saying it was another officer. I think it might be too difficult for some of them to believe that one officer would kill another, but I'm going to give you an idea in the list of those who could potentially have done this, why that might have happened. So Jason Ellis wasn't just a good guy and a family man, which every article you see about him that starts with family man Jason Ellis murdered. They don't even mention police officer for a while. They say family man. And I think the reason why is because it's true. His wife, Amy, was a substitute teacher, and they had two sons, Hunter and Parker. And the younger son was special needs. And I'm only going to mention that because it's a detail that may have a connection to two other murders, and you'll understand why. He was a really remarkable guy. I mean, everyone who talks about him, it's like we can't say enough nice things, and after someone dies, you put them on a pedestal, but you don't understand. He was the guy who should have always been on a pedestal. His wife was everything to him. His wife and his sons. He was a standout baseball player in high school and college, and he was eventually recruited by the Cincinnati Reds and played on their farm team for 3 years. He was that good.
Wow.
That he could have, gone to the big game.
Yeah.
After 3 years of being on the farm team, though, he leaves and decides to join a police agency, and he joins Bardstown. And he was 1 week from his 7th anniversary in the department. He had joined the Bardstown PD in early June of 2006, and he is murdered in late May of 2013, almost 7 years in. So the first person that comes upon Jason, as you can imagine, I think she just panicked. And I don't know if she didn't know exactly what to do, but soon after she drives up and sees the blue lights, the car parked in the middle of the exit ramp, she gets out and sees that he is on the ground. And it's estimated that this is about 6 minutes after it happened, like 2:36 a.m. They believe it happened around 2:30. Another man pulls up, and he was a distillery worker who was just off his shift. And he sort of kicks into gear. He calls 911. He goes over and is administering life-saving, everything he knows to do to try and keep Jason alive. And you can hear in the call, and it gives me chills right now, the woman just screaming, "Officer down, officer down." And you hear the dispatcher saying, "Where is this at?" And they're like, "Exit 34." And the woman just keeps screaming, "Officer down, officer down." And the male, is attempting to save him. And you can hear, the dispatcher saying, "Is he breathing?" And the man says, "No, ma'am, he's not."
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, he's already gone. And what happens when a call like that goes out over the airwaves. Everyone in law enforcement responds. And unfortunately, the two people that got there the quickest were his partner and his best friend in the department.
Oh, my.
And they are both gutted. And his partner, Mike Medley, called the chief, Rick McCubbin, and said, "They killed him. they got him, they killed him. And Chief McCubbin is like, who? And he says, Jason, they killed Jason. And Chief McCubbin is devastated. And Chief McCubbin retired from Bardstown and is now the chief of police of Shepherdsville in Kentucky. And every interview that he has is lovely because you see in his face, in his eyes, his true respect and affection for Jason Ellis. He calls him a chief's cop. He actually delivered the eulogy at Jason Ellis's funeral. He was like, Jason was a great cop. He had really made some dents in the drug world in Bardstown. He was the guy who would smile. He was the guy who, smiled at everyone. He was the guy who came to a big fancy Christmas party dressed as an elf. He was the first person to volunteer to do any task, the easy ones, the hard ones, or the fun ones. He just volunteered to do everything. So, besides the 3 people that he had arrested that night and, was on his way home after that, he was very close to breaking a large burglary ring where like storage facilities and even some private homes that had like storage sheds, they were all being robbed. And it's like, who would, do this to Jason Ellis? I mean, the list is pretty short. They think, could it be the people in the burglary ring that know he's close to them? I really don't know a lot of burglars who murder cops. If you maybe interrupt them in the middle of, you're stealing something, maybe, but they mostly run away. They don't usually even carry weapons. They usually do it when they think you're not home or during the day. I just don't see a burglary ring that doesn't even rob homes, like outbuildings, like storage sheds and, storage facilities where you're hoping to not run into a person. I don't see them orchestrating a 2-person assassination by sniping an officer. I don't see that. And, there's ideas that people have said out loud, but there's really never, and maybe they're just keeping this close to the vest because honestly, the Kentucky State Police are the lead. And then there's the Bardstown PD, and then there's the FBI. And maybe they're just keeping this so close to the vest, but there's never really been one person of interest, at least who's been talked about out loud or to the press. So here's a couple of theories of who it could be, but I just think this is, I hesitate to mention them again because I'm going to have to bring other cases in, but I feel like it's important to mention who could be involved. So there's the Cornbread Mafia with their, code Omerta. There's the Bardstown.
That sounds comical to me.
Yeah. No, wait, this is going to get better. This is going to be more comical. I think it is too. I think the name, but I will be honest with you. I have had 2 Kentucky State detectives who asked me to cover cases that they feel were from the Cornbread Mafia, but they cut off 2 men's hands.
Oh my! Okay.
I know.
Well,
I know.
But they just picked a terrible name, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So this one's almost as bad because it's so ridiculous. It's built on air. The Bardstown Money Gang. So it's a group of young men who are just dumb. They're just dumb drug dealers. And if anything, they're just posers. They want people to think they're badasses. And they have their own music video that's on YouTube. And it's really pathetic. It's like a parody.
What?
I know.
What?
The Bardstown Money Gang. It's like 10 or 15 young men who are kind of like rappers.
Oh, boy.
And it's like they watched a bunch of Snoop Dogg videos and then thought, this is how you look like a baller.
Oh, God.
So one of the Bardstown Money Gang, which I think is just made up to sound bad, is a man named Brant Shekels. Now, Brant is...
It's getting better.
I know, and it's his real name. He's the nephew...
I'm sorry.
I know. He's the nephew of the Bardstown mayor, Bill Shekels. And Brant Shekels walks into a large field party and says, I killed Jason Ellis. The people in the Bardstown Money Gang, we killed that cop. And, and then they find out that he was actually in jail the night that Jason was assassinated.
Right. Good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's, he's still bragging that his group had something to do with it. You know, he's busting us for selling drugs. And it just, that whole thing feels like bullshittery. I don't even know what else to say, but the Bardstown Money Gang, the BMG, they call themselves the BMG, which I guess has a little bit more cachet than the Cornbread Mafia.
Yeah. That's great.
I know, I know. So here's the connection to Jason's son being special needs. In April of 2014, a mother and daughter, this is some other cases in Bardstown, the 5 unsolved murders. A mother and daughter are murdered in their home, Kathy and Samantha Niederland. Kathy's 48, Samantha's 16. Kathy is a special education teacher, and Jason Ellis's wife, Amy, was a substitute special education teacher, and they probably all knew each other, and perhaps, I don't even know if Jason's son was old enough to go to school yet, but I think they all, knew each other even peripherally. It's not a big town, but I guess it's spread out more than we think. But I mean, it's really like searching for something that really may not be a connection. And the way they were murdered was so different. I mean, Kathy was killed right near the front door, and it appears that Samantha was trying to flee out the back door, and Kathy was stabbed and shot, and Samantha was stabbed and her throat was cut. And both of them had been beaten. This is up close and personal.
Yeah, it's completely different.
I think so too. I'm glad you say that. The only connection would be the fact that, Kathy was a special education teacher, but I'm not even sure that's a connection.
That's really stretching.
You don't understand, Mark. The 5 unsolved murders in Bardstown are all connected in almost every podcast and almost every television show. They just mention it because it's like 5 people murdered in Mayberry.
Well, right. I get it. But this was such a different kind of murder.
I know. So it's, almost a year after Jason's murder. And it seems, Samantha got the worst of it, and she was 16. It could be, who knows who it could be, but they also believe it's more than one person, obviously, to get them both. There's only one real piece of solid evidence, and it's not even that solid. And there's a black car that was parked behind the house that was seen on surveillance footage. And Kentucky State Police is also the lead on this case. And they say that whoever was in that car had to have been in the house at the time of the murders. But they can't even, it's a black car. I don't know what the lighting was like in April of 2014, but I can tell you that on May 25th of 2013, it was a full moon. I did look that up. So it was a full moon when Jason Ellis turned on to exit 34 and could, when you're out in the country, there's not a lot of what they call light pollution, other than like maybe street lights or something. And it's such a beautiful area there. He could see probably pretty well by the light of the moon, which could also mean those who killed him had a good vantage point.
And sure, and if they're using that kind of weaponry, they could have, scopes that are fixed for night vision.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because you know how I don't know a whole lot about weapons. It was a 12-gauge shotgun.
They were, what?
Right.
A shotgun?
12-gauge shotgun.
The snipers used shotguns.
Well, here's the weird part. Rick McCubbin said, and you can see him turning this over in his head, Chief Rick McCubbin, turning it over in his head. There was a 12 to 17-inch shot pattern on all of the shots on Jason's body. That to me means someone was pretty close.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it means. I assumed they were people far away.
Yeah, but shotguns, the farther away you are with a shotgun,
the more it spreads out.
Out. It's not going to be, you're not going to get a clear hit in the shoulder, a clear hit in the neck.
Right. In the arm and in the head.
It's going to be a lot more sloppy than that if you're too far away.
That's what I thought.
I mean, I'm not an expert at this, and somebody out there might correct me, but I'm, I come from a family of hunters. I was not one of them, and I just remember though that my dad and all my brothers were all hunters, and As far as I remember, if the farther, shot scatters. It opens up and fans out the farther away you are. So
12 gauge.
Interesting.
So that's, I think, why Chief McCubbin thinks it's a trained hunter or someone in the military, and maybe they were just closer than we thought. Like they just walked up. I can't. Talking about this makes me want to vomit.
It does, but it's. I think that they were close up. I think that they must have come out of the bushes or something, and just come up on him when he wasn't looking, and just shot him at closer range than I originally thought.
Yeah, it's so awful, and it's one of those cases where, people are like, well, what about, Figo in the back seat? Well, he didn't have Figo with him. Can you imagine if that poor dog had been trapped in the car?
Oh, God.
So there's one potential law enforcement connection that I cannot ignore, and I want to, because I don't want to talk about this case at all. But all of these terrible things happened in this short period of time. So Officer Ellis, May of 2013, the Niederlander mother and daughters, 2014. July 5th of 2015, Crystal Rogers, her car was found abandoned on the Bluegrass Parkway, not far from where Jason Ellis was found, I think on the opposite side. And her mother had reported her missing because her partner, Brooks Houck, had not. And her mother sees Brooks out, in town, and she's like, I'm going to report her missing. And Brooks says, well, you got to do what you got to do. So Crystal is the mother of 5. She's 41, beautiful blonde, the daughter of Sherry and Tommy Ballard, a lovely, well-respected family in Bardstown. Brooks Houck is from a well-known family in Bardstown, and his brother Nick is a Bardstown police officer who works the same shift as Jason Ellis. Now, they are two separate people, two very different personalities. Jason Ellis is the outgoing, gregarious guy, and Nick Houck is the off to himself. Chief McCubbin said it would not be unusual to see him sitting by himself during roll call, or he was quiet. He had a sense of humor. Jason Ellis would constantly tease him about his perfect hair, and he took it with grace, but he wasn't the kind of guy to make, I think, a lot of long-lasting friendships. So Brooks Houck is dating Crystal Rogers, and they have a son. And in July of 2015, he says they went to his farm, his family's farm, to feed the cows, or it's just this crazy story. And he says he goes to bed, and Crystal was up playing a game on her phone, and he wakes up the next morning. They'd had a fight. He admits that. He wakes up the next morning, and their son is lying next to him on the bed, and Crystal's gone. And he's just like, oh, well, she left. We had a fight.
I remember this case. Yeah.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Because you can't get away from it. And I honestly don't want to talk about this one. I want to talk about Jason Ellis. But it's so difficult to cover his case without covering all these other ones that are so adjacent. So I'm going to call it Jason Adjacent. So, Brooke Houck doesn't tell anyone. At some point, Sherry Ballard was looking for her daughter, and he's like, yeah, she left. Well, I don't know if she got mad. She left, went to her friend's house, I think. They talked to her friend. Her friend's like, no, this is the time. This is the one time she didn't come to me when you guys had a fight. And when they had fights in the past, she would go to her friend's house for like one night, and then come back the next day. It wasn't like she had a habit of running away from her 5 children. And her car is found July 5th, just abandoned on the Bluegrass Parkway. And she's tall. She was 5'9". But honestly, the seat was pushed back further than her. I will tell you, I'm 5'8". And just today, I picked up my car from having it repaired. And whoever the fuck was in my car must have been Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Because the mirror was fucked. I never have to move the seat up. I'm 5'8". I mean, I know that's not like a giant. But I like my seat pretty far back. I leave the back sitting upright, like A coworker of Mark's calls us like, what you call it, like student seating or something. Like we sit upright, like we're at our desks in school.
We sit upright and at attention.
I do like that. I don't like laying back in the back seat.
I hate it.
I feel like I can't control the car.
I hate it.
So I'm enough of a control freak that I know where my car is set. And the people that knew Crystal knew that her car seat was pushed back further than she would be driving it. So, and then here's the last of the 5 murders that happened in Bardstown that are unsolved. 16 months after Crystal, I'm sorry, I'm calling hers a murder. She's still missing. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I think we know she's not coming back. 16 months after Crystal's disappearance, her father, Tommy Ballard, who was the biggest beater of the drum, put up giant billboards. Where is my daughter, Crystal, Rogers? He's not going to stop. He is not going to stop. And he takes a break from, he's like a one-man band. He gets printing machines and learns how to do things on the computer that he never did before, printing off flyers, doing research, doing, Google Earth shots of the property that Brooks Houcks lives on, the huge family farm. He's just not giving up. And he takes a break to go hunting in November of 2016 with his 12-year-old grandson on his own property. And he is assassinated on his property
by a sniper, right?
By a sniper.
Yeah.
They actually find the tree that they believe the sniper hid in. There was no deer stand. It was not, a sanctioned tree where someone would sit and wait for a deer. A limb had been hastily removed so someone could be more comfortable and have a better eye line to Tommy and his grandson. He's murdered with one shot.
So somebody was not happy with him and probably afraid of him because eventually he was going to find out who killed his daughter.
Well, I can tell you that Brooks Houck's brother Nick was let go from the Bardstown PD because they said they couldn't trust someone who was obviously keeping information. He failed a lie detector test. They truly believe, Brooks and Nick are very close. They truly believe that Brooks did something to Crystal and Nick helped him. Now, this is after Jason Ellis is murdered. I don't think that Nick, 2 years earlier, killed Jason Ellis. I don't see that. But I don't know. The thing is, none of us know. So the last detail in Jason's murder that I have to talk about, I'm going to try really hard not to cry, is that his partner Figo, in June of 2017, just a few days after the 4th anniversary of Jason Ellis's murder, he died in his sleep. And the cemetery where Jason is buried, they don't allow animal cremains, but they are making an exception, and Figo's urn will be tied to Jason's monument. And it's, he was the last, his wife, his mother-in-law were taking care of Figo, and he was the last connection to their son and their husband.
Yeah.
His mother-in-law said, this is a really hard day. We've dreaded this for such a long time. He was a working dog. He loved working. That's what he lived for. And he loved working with Jason, and he missed him. So he's not going to be buried there, but his ashes are attached to Jason's tombstone. And the thing that is like overwhelming and shocking, and some people have said, oh my God, I've seen this picture so many times. I hadn't. At Jason Ellis's memorial, Figo put his paw on Jason's casket. And it is a picture that is heartbreaking, number one, and yet gives you hope that so many people loved him two-legged and four-legged, that someone knows what happened. I'm sure of that. Someone knows what happened to this man. There is a $180,000 reward in Jason Ellis's case. I hope that if you know something, you would do it for reasons other than the reward. But if that's what motivates you, I don't care. If you know anything about what happened that night to Jason Ellis and who did it, please call the Kentucky State Police Post 4 at 270-766-5078. You can email elliscasetips@kentucky.gov or anonymously at fbi.gov/wanted/seekinginfo/Jason Ellis. And more cowbell.
If you'd like to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.